All right, WWE Royal Rumble 2025 predictions live here on Wrestling Reaction. I thought about doing a video, which you guys know we normally do here at the channel. I think the first time we've ever done predictions live here at Wrestling Reaction, but I wanted to get you guys to chime in with your thoughts. One of the most exciting matches of the year in WWE, and we're going to share our thoughts on the entire card on this show. The Men's Rumble, the Women's Rumble. Of course, Cody Rhodes defends the title against Kevin Owens. You've got the 2 out of 3 falls match, DIY, against the Motor City Machine Guns. So I thought I'd do it live here on the channel to get some input from you guys. I know it's been a while since we've done a live stream, so hopefully you jump back in. I appreciate, again, you guys continuing to weigh in your thoughts on all these videos we've done recently here on the channel, getting you ready for the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania 41, which will be here before we know it. But let's get things started here. We'll let some people hop into the chat. As always, here on the channel, I see some guys jumping in now, getting ready to talk Rumble here. So we'll go through each match and share some thoughts on what we think is going to happen. I've told you guys in previous videos, and you've commented as well, this could be the most interesting and maybe exciting, even best Royal Rumble in history when it comes to, I think, particularly the men's match. I think the men's match is going to be just, it's been built up unlike any other I've seen in WWE in a long time. So I think it's going to deliver, and we'll talk about all the different scenarios that could play out here. I think there are so many in my mind when I make my predictions. Even right now, I'm like, do I want to pick this guy? Do I want to pick that guy? We'll find out as we go along here on the live show. But if you are hopping in, say hello in the chat. As always, I appreciate you guys. Yeah, let me know your thoughts on what you're thinking about these Rumble matches and what you think maybe is going to happen at WrestleMania 41. What's going to be the card? So many different options, I think, for the newly minted Hall of Famer, Triple H and company, to come up with on the road to Las Vegas. So, all right, let's go ahead and get to this match quickly because I don't think we're going to spend a lot of time on it. DIY is going to defend those tag team championships against the Motor City Machine Guns, 2 out of 3 falls match in Indianapolis here. I do think this is a match that right now it's a 4-match card, right? You got the 2 Rumble matches that will take a while. You got Cody versus Owens. You've got this tag team match. I don't really think they're going to necessarily add anything else. I don't think it needs anything else because this match, I think, will get plenty of time to do some work here, 20-plus minutes. Hello, T-Rob, jumping in. I told you, T-Rob, we were gonna talk Royal Rumble today, and here we are. So, yes, we're going to share our thoughts on everything. I want to know what you think, too, about this entire show. But for this tag team match, I think this is going to be pretty straightforward in terms of, hey, these guys are out there to have a great match. I think that's pretty much all there is to it. Again, I think this will go 20-plus minutes. And I do think this is one in terms of if you're making your prediction on this match. Could you see the Motor City Machine Guns regaining the titles? Sure. And I do think eventually maybe this is going to be something where you're going to see these tag titles maybe bounce back and forth a bit because I do think that they're really trying to beef up this division some, right? And because you have the 3 hours on SmackDown every single week, it's not a bad idea to kind of maybe play a little hot potato at times with these tag team championships. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, my prediction is DIY to retain because I don't really feel like they've had anything to this run so far except for kind of just the backstage drama between all these teams, whether it's Pretty Deadly, whether it's, Legado del Fantasma, like all these guys. And I feel like they need sort of that first huge kind of moment as the champions to sort of define this title run. And two, yeah, I mean, look, the Street Profits, as T-Rob notes here, they've not even kind of been factored into things necessarily as of late. So I think I like the idea of just DIY retaining. I think, still Motor City Machine Guns will come out of this looking fine because, they're a really good tag team and they've already won the championships. I don't think they need them back this quickly. And I could probably see Triple H wanting to get his guys, Ciampa and Gargano, a really nice spotlight here on a Royal Rumble and a big defense at that. I mean, you guys have talked about it. It's the first time these titles have been defended on the, a PLE in a long time. So I think it's all about this being a good match, and I think the champions retain here, I feel like, just in this. So appreciate you joining in, Josh. Yeah, we're going to get to your thoughts here on the Rumble match. I'm going to star this so we don't miss this comment when we get to the men's match here in just a minute. But, yeah, I think that, I agree with T-Rob. DIY just kind of get a little pat on the back here, get a little confidence as the champions, and the match is going to be fantastic, I think, between these two. So, we'll see what happens here with this. All right, let's get to the only other match that's not a Royal Rumble match on this card, and that is, of course, Cody defending the title against Kevin Owens. And I think we all know or expect the result to be pretty predictable here in terms of Cody retaining this championship, knowing all the options you have going into WrestleMania 41. We know Cody's going to be the main event for one of these nights, right? It would shock us if he's not, based on the fact that Cody's been the face of the company, all of this stuff. And so I fully expect Cody to win this match. But to me, it's more about how does it happen, right? And, we kind of have Owens, who has played just the ultimate perfect heel in this whole equation. He's brought in so many different things, and, WWE has continued to tie it all together with the different stories and everything. We have the Owens, Sami Zayn stuff. You've got the Owens, hatred for Roman Reigns. That's what started all this. You've still got Randy Orton out there. There's just so many ways this could go, and I'm very curious to see whether this is a situation where Randy Orton comes back in some way, shape, or form here in this match, whether it's during it or after it, right? And I think this is kind of something where you're setting up a scenario where everyone expects Orton to come back here. But does it happen in this match, or do we see this where maybe, as I think is going to happen, Owens loses this match, and then he goes into the Rumble, right? He gets himself in the Rumble, and then that's where you get Orton making his return and somehow having that sort of showdown with Owens to finish that chapter, to get us to the chapter we all know is still coming. We've been talking about it for 6 months now, I feel like, with Cody and Orton. But we all know it's going to happen eventually. And, even some of you guys are talking about in the chat right now, like Josh bringing it up, and even Keith's bringing it up here about the Cody heel turn eventually, right? The way they're kind of setting this up, they are pointing out some of Cody's very clear flaws in this whole thing. Like, I thought Punk's words on Raw were very kind of, biting in terms of just making it like when Punk says what he says, it's like, hey, he's not wrong about any of this. And we've said the same about Kevin Owens, right? He's said some things about Cody that are not wrong. And so, I think it's a great point here, Keith, as you bring up, to think after seeing that exchange between Punk and Cody, that we're getting close to maybe that Cody part. And you know what? Here's what I like too. And this is one of, I think, been the strengths of WWE, really, for a while now, but I think especially in this build to the Rumble, is one of these things where, like, there are so many, like, gray areas. You don't just have, this is the new generation era, right, in the mid-90s, where you've got very clear, defined, here's the guys you're supposed to cheer, here are the guys you're not supposed to cheer. Although I guess you could say Doink was like, he was kind of that, he was a good clown, he was an evil clown, but Doink was a clown, right? Cody's not a clown, but the way they've sort of played this up in terms of having, it's even the Seth Rollins, right, Sami Zayn, like all these guys who have kind of been these tweeners where, you can understand why they would get frustrated and all of a sudden snap. But there's also that part you still want to cheer for them. And so it's going to be interesting, I think, to see what happens with Cody. And yeah, like Keith continuing here, sort of the friends turning on him, that's what eventually causes Cody to snap, is because at a certain point, you're not going to take that anymore, right? And you're going to think, all right, everybody keeps saying this about me. Okay, well, I do, and I agree with you. Like, I think eventually it's going to happen, right? It's just, when do they think the time is right to do it? Because remember, like last year at this time, when we're making our predictions for the Royal Rumble last year, and you guys go back, please don't go back and watch the first couple videos we did on this channel. They were terrible. But if you go back and watch my predictions last year, we said it was pretty predictable. It was going to be Cody and Punk at the end of the Rumble last year. But I said, this is kind of that thing where Punk's going to maybe start that heel turn, right? You get Punk kind of in that scenario. But we also said it was way too early. The fans still wanted to cheer Punk. And I think Cody has kind of reached that point where there is a lot of, kind of scenarios here where you can absolutely play up the idea that eventually Cody is going to turn. But Josh brings up a good point here. It's also like from a WWE perspective, and Punk said it on Monday, like Cody is the face, right? He's the guy still at the top. And yes, like we know Cena, Reigns, Punk, all these guys, you keep going down the line. But like Cody's still he's the top dog, right? And so there's always risk if you decide to make that turn and say, all right, we want people to boo Cody. Cody just does so many things outside of just the on-screen stuff, like all the immediate appearances. As Punk brought up, that's what you do as the champion, like the Cena treatment. There you go, T-Rod. That's a great comparison, right? We're already getting some of that. And it's kind of one of those where it's going to happen eventually. I do believe that. It's just I don't know how soon it happens, but they're laying the foundation, I think, is already there. But it's just that may be further down the line because we know Triple H is thinking way down the line when it comes to a lot of this stuff. So look, I'm going to pick Cody to beat Owens. I don't think there's any debate about that, right? I think we're all on the same page. But it'll be a good match. And I just think it's a matter of, does Orton come back here and get involved in this match, or is it kind of one of those where you're expecting him and then maybe, you sort of forget about it after this? Owens enters the Rumble, Orton gets in, somehow gets involved. And we're going to talk about Orton in a minute in the men's Rumble match, because I think there are some things people are maybe forgetting a little bit about Orton when it comes to him potentially being someone who could win this match. But we'll talk about it as we go through the men's Rumble here in a second. But if you guys have any other picks on Cody, Kevin Owens, let me know in the chat. But I think we're all on the same page, and we're all picking Cody to retain the championship. Should be a good match, ladder match of these two. As always, my biggest prediction is please no injuries when it comes to having two guys like this who are just doing fantastic work right now. You don't want to see anything like that happen. But I'm actually most fascinated to see what shirt Kevin Owens is going to be wearing. You guys give your predictions on that. What shirt is he going to wear for the Rumble? What's going to really take it over the top? I mean, he's already done the Cody Sucks Eggs shirts. He's worn Naomi's shirt when he faces Jimmy Uso. His shirt game is tremendous right now. So yeah, we gotta see what happens here. But yeah, Cody going to get that Winged Eagle belt back, and the good guy prevails here. I think, at least in Kevin Owens' mind, he's the good guy. He's going to get the black and red polka dot. Okay, all right, that would be good. I like that. So there you go. All right, we'll probably get back around to Cody and Kevin Owens when we talk about the Rumble, men's Rumble here in a second. But let's go to the women's Royal Rumble match, because I think this one, and you guys can, and again, continue to leave your thoughts. We'll get back to some of your thoughts on the men's match and all that here in just a bit once we talk about it. But the women's match, I think, is pretty intriguing. Now, it hasn't had the build that the men's match has. I think we all can agree on that, just because I don't think you have the full roster in place right now, at least in terms of you're about to get it there, right? We know Charlotte's coming back. We know Becky Lynch is probably coming back. Whether it's now or after this, I would expect her to come back here. Why would she not? It's the Royal Rumble, big moment, and they haven't exactly filled out this women's Rumble the way that they have the men's Rumble so far. You've got the NXT possibilities who could be in this match. You've got Jordynne Grace, who just, signed a multi-year deal with WWE. You've got so many. Jade still got to come back, right? Is this where Jade makes her return? So this will be one where you're not going to maybe have all the names going into it on Saturday, but we know once we get there, you're going to get some big surprises, I think, in the women's match. You're going to have probably a couple legends that'll come back. They do that every year, I feel like. Jade's back. I think I complete with that, Josh. I just feel like it's going to happen. And in the men's match, too, we'll talk about some potential surprises coming on that. But I think in this one, and look, we can start this conversation here, because this is where, when you're predicting how you think these matches are going to go with the men's and women's match, you're doing it with the idea that you have to pick a winner who is going to somehow help them fill out the WrestleMania 41 card for the championship matches, okay? So, in the men's match is much more complicated to try to figure out. But with this one, I think it's pretty clear. Tiffany Stratton is, the WWE Women's Champion right now. Rhea Ripley is the Women's World Champion. And I think when you're trying to find the opponents for both of those, it becomes pretty easy. For Tiffany Stratton, I think it's pretty obvious. And I would be shocked if her opponent at WrestleMania 41 is anyone other than Charlotte Flair. And, if you go back last year, I think when we made our predictions after WrestleMania 40, that was one of the ones I said, it just feels like we're going to get to that eventually. And you could definitely see that as a WrestleMania 41 type match. Well, now they've done all the vignettes. Charlotte's back, right? And so Tiffany Stratton, and remember, they've done them in sequence too. Think about that. If you go back and watch when they've done the Charlotte videos on SmackDown over the past couple weeks, it's been either right before, I think, or right after the Tiffany Stratton segment. So they're just dropping these little hints to tell you we're going to get there. The question is, do you get there via Charlotte winning the Rumble, or do you get there via maybe having Charlotte win the Elimination Chamber to get there, or something like that, right? And look, you also have this option too, as T-Rob knows. You could also always go back to Rhea and Charlotte. If you want a guaranteed match that's going to deliver, those two, I think, have some of the best chemistry of any two WWE women's wrestlers I've ever seen. Like, their matches just always deliver. So you could always go back to that. But I do think they want to get to Charlotte and Tiffany. And if that's what you want to get to, then Charlotte just winning the Rumble here makes sense. Now, do I think that's going to be everyone's popular choice? Maybe not, because, you guys know this. when it comes to Charlotte over the years, the big knock on her is that anytime she goes out for a period of time, she always comes back and she's immediately thrown into the world title picture. Sometimes she's immediately thrown into it and just wins it right away, right? And so I think playing with that dynamic, who are the fans? Yeah, I mean, look, here it's honestly true. I think you will have many people who will be frustrated if she wins. Because here's the thing, right? The way they've been positioning Tiffany Stratton, she's kind of playing that tweener too. We've talked about it. Sometimes you'll have people cheer. There are other roles where she's going to be the obvious heel in some of these scenarios. And so I think it's when Charlotte comes back, are the fans going to cheer Charlotte over Tiffany Stratton? I don't think so. I think Tiffany will get more of the cheers than Charlotte will, but they may be okay with that because they're going to play with that idea, like I said, of having more of the tweeners type idea. So if it's not Charlotte, I think that the discussion gets interesting. If they decide Charlotte's not winning this, we'll let her go earn it in the Elimination Chamber, which I think is not a bad idea based on fan reaction potentially. But the other two options to me, these are the two next options. And one's brought up here by Eduardo. I think IYO Sky is someone who's been talked about. You know, you've kind of got, damage control. It's just the injuries have kind of mounted there. Dakota Kai's injured. We know Kairi Zane's been out with the injury. Asuka's situation, we're not sure. And we'll talk about some of the surprises in a second, potentially. And yes, you guys are mentioning Alexa Bliss. It could certainly be one of those, maybe. But, like, IYO's one, like, of the outside chance you wanted to go with something like Rhea versus IYO Sky, you could certainly see that as a possibility, I think. Now, here's why I say a possibility. Because to me, if it's not her versus Rhea, I don't think there are a lot of other obvious options for Rhea except for one. And I think the only other option to me is Bianca Belair. I think that is probably, and that's where, like, I have to make a prediction here, right? And I'm leaning. I'm like, do I pick Charlotte? Do I pick Bianca? But here's the thing. All this depends on Jade. Because if they're bringing Jade back now, which I would think they will, because we've got to resolve this whole Jade attack saga, right? And we've all said they're pointing us in the most obvious direction to make you think it's Naomi. But, like, somehow is it revealed that it's Bianca? I don't know. Like, we don't know how that works. But I think this is one where I think Rhea versus Bianca would be an absolute potential headliner of a WrestleMania night, right? I could totally see that. But if you're going to bring Jade back, I feel like you probably have to get to Bianca and Jade at WrestleMania, do you not? Because we were thinking that was the direction they were going for the longest while there. Jade, they do the attack storyline. We know eventually Jade's out injured or whatever. But if they're going to do Bianca Jade, well, it doesn't make sense for Bianca to win the Rumble and go on to face Rhea. So then it's like, okay, well, then what do you do? Well, you could also say Bianca wins the Rumble, goes on to face Rhea. You don't do Bianca and Jade just yet. And then maybe it is one of those where, like, it's the long burn on the reveal. Jade thinks it's Naomi, and maybe you do Jade and Naomi at WrestleMania somehow, right? And then it gets a little further down the line. Eventually we get to Bianca and Jade then. But I don't know. Like, I'm very curious. I think that it's one of these things where because Jade has been out for a significant amount of time, do you really want to go ahead and get to Bianca and Jade this quickly? Because I feel like, yes, they built up to it, and it could just be as simple as, like, the big reveal. Yeah, I mean, look, Keith brings up a good point here, and we've gone back and forth on this, haven't we? Normally we do know, right? Like, we know exactly what's going on, but, like, this has been one where we just don't. It's kind of been out there. We just don't really have much of an idea of how they're going to go about this or really what, the situation is going to be moving forward. And so it makes it harder to predict. And that's why when I go back to making my pick here, it's the unknowns versus the knowns, right? I feel 99.5% sure that they are going to do Charlotte versus Tiffany Stratton at WrestleMania. I'm not 99.5% sure of who Rhea Ripley's opponent's going to be, whether that's Bianca or whether it could be an IYO Sky, whether it could be someone else, right? I mean, look, the potential surprise options, we just mentioned it. Becky Lynch, you feel like is probably coming back, and this would be a great place for her to come back. Alexa Bliss is someone out there. Certainly who could be thrown back into the mix. Do I think she's going to win the Rumble? Probably not, but could she be a surprise entrant? Sure. We've talked about the legends, all these other people. Bayley's kind of, people talking about Bayley in the chat. I don't know what Bayley's going to do at WrestleMania. Like, I don't know, and certainly if she won the Rumble, that would make it pretty clear. You would have an idea, but I think, maybe Elimination Chamber is where things get a lot more interesting there. So I don't feel confident about this pick because I want to pick Bianca Belair because I think that Bianca and Rhea is the match they do at WrestleMania 41. I feel like maybe now they hold off on the Jade thing for a little while, no matter what the big reveal is with the attack. But do I just pick Charlotte here? Because I feel so confident she's going to face Tiffany. If I pick Charlotte, I don't think the fan reaction is going to be great if Charlotte wins. And that's what I think. Maybe they know that, which kind of holds me back a little bit. So, oh man, she seems like such the obvious choice. I'm trying to go bold here, guys. I'm trying to go bold, and I may go Bianca Belair. Even though I think Charlotte is probably going to win, I'm going to make Bianca my choice because I just feel like this is one where they've teased it. Remember going back to Survivor Series, they teased the interaction, sort of the egos of Rhea and Bianca when it came to who was going to be the team captain, all this stuff. You had some of that there. What if Bianca wins, and then it's eventually revealed that Jade was attacked by Bianca, right? And so Bianca has gotten all of this to gain with Jade being out, and you just kind of have one of these things. And yeah, T-Rob's right here. It's eventually, this is what it comes down to. Do they want to heel or face Charlotte? I think they're going to get a heel Charlotte whether they want it or not. I just don't know how many people are cheering Charlotte, like I said, even over Tiffany, or because they see, Tiffany as the new thing, right? She's the new up-and-coming star. They sort of, I think there's certainly a large part of the audience that sees Charlotte as maybe the person that holds back that new, kind of up-and-coming stars like her. Again, we talked about, look at all the talent they have in NXT that are on their way up, Roxanne Perez and people like that. So I don't know. I will pick Bianca. I'm not confident about that. But I think I'm more intrigued by the idea of Bianca winning and the different ways they can go with that versus I like the idea of Charlotte having to earn it in the Elimination Chamber, but they may not. They may just have Charlotte waltz right back on in, and that may be the story. As T-Rob says, heel Charlotte comes in, wins the thing, and all of a sudden, the hatred even more. So, hey, AJ Lee, we've done this multiple years in a row, right? Could AJ finally make her return here? I'd love to see it. That was one of my predictions last year. I thought she would be in the Rumble. It didn't happen. And it's got to happen eventually, doesn't it, guys? I mean, at some point, she's got to. So she's got to come back. So it's got to happen. But yeah, even Trish, I'm sure Trish would be a name. Actually, you mentioned that earlier too. Trish would certainly be someone you could see come back for this Rumble without a doubt. So to me, those are your top options. In whatever order you want to put them in, I think Charlotte's the favorite. I think Bianca's right there. IYO Sky, I think, has a chance. Becky certainly has a chance if she's in this match. Those are probably the top four, in my opinion, unless they just want to shock the world and all of a sudden you have someone, come in and, who knows? Maybe Jade returns, right? She wins the Rumble. All kinds of possibilities. So yeah, those are the options. I think she'll get some NXT appearances, as I said, whether it's Roxanne coming up, having interactions with Bayley, Jordan Grace, is here now. I could see that. Any of those women, Julia, anyone. I think you could really just fill out this women's Rumble with some pretty good talent. So yeah, should be a lot of fun. Shout out to Russell too. Nice to see you in here, Russell. Yeah, and again, appreciate you guys joining in. We kind of just did this impromptu style. Happy New Year, yeah, to everyone. I know we've not done as many videos as we usually do. I've told you guys, been living the dad toddler life right now with a 3-month-old. It's, hey, come on. We try to get as many videos as I can, but some of these videos you wouldn't be able to understand what I was saying due to a lack of sleep probably. But oh yeah, here's a good question, Eduardo. I'm glad you brought this up because we were going to talk about this in the men's match. But before we move to the men's match, who's going to be the Iron Woman of the Rumble? Will it be Jordan Grace? Yeah, she had such a great showing last year. And now that she's officially going to be signed with the company, I think, and remember too, we've got the TNA partnership now. So you could see, obviously she's someone who just came from TNA, but you could maybe see someone there too, as a possible surprise entrance into this. I think you'll definitely have it on the men's side, which we'll talk about in a second. I think there's going to be one clear person from the men's side who will be in this match. But I do think, if you're picking an Iron Woman, I could see Jordan Grace getting that opportunity. No doubt. I could certainly see that. Or like I mentioned, if they wanted to do one of the NXT women's stars, maybe have them come in and just kind of make that statement, putting them in a position to be kind of the Iron Woman. But yeah, I'm always fascinated by the order of these Rumbles too. Who is going to be coming in and what spot and all that. I think it's always a kind of fun idea, and they have a lot to work with, especially in the men's match, I think, but they can put together some good stuff here. What happens if Bianca's number one and all of a sudden Jade's number two? Or what happens if Naomi is kind of if they do Bianca 1, Naomi 2? There's a lot of things you could do to really push the suspense and the drama I think, with the women's side. I'll stick with your pick though. I'll go Jordynne Grace. I like that idea for the Iron Woman of this match. So Ivy Niles is a good point too. She's getting that shot. They've been pushing her for the Women's Intercontinental Championship match for sure with Valkyria. So I could see them doing that match soon. All right, let me see. I'm going to try to catch up on some of your picks here, and we'll get them on the screen before we get to the men's Rumble match. We'll probably spend the most time on this because I do think it's going to be the most fascinating discussion when it comes to this. All right, let me try to catch up here. Let's see. Jackson's going to go Dark Horse Jordynne Grace. I like that. I'm telling you, I like the idea of her. Let's get to a couple other things here quickly. Keith asks, how do you see the Sami and Owens thing working out of the Rumble, especially after Zayn has Luva kicked 2 baby faces so far? Yeah. Here we go, Keith. We're about to get into it. And just quickly, shout out here. We're going to go to Mandy. Picks for the Rumble. Charlotte and Roman. Not a prediction, it's a spoiler. All right. There you go. Okay, here we go. This is the one probably most of you are tuning in for the most. The Men's Royal Rumble match. I said in a previous video, you've watched it here on the channel, I think this is the most exciting buildup of any Rumble I've seen. And look, Robert, good to talk to you again as always. I mean, I've said it. I think 2 of my favorite Rumbles of all time, 1992, 2001. I think even the build to those matches, they were good, but I think you could argue this is one of, if not the best built Royal Rumble match ever. And you know me, guys. I'm not the hot take type guy. I don't just go over the top to go over the top. It's kind of it's a good phrase to use for the Royal Rumble, right? But I truly believe that. I think the way they built this up is that you have a scenario here where every single person at that top level, and think about the number of top-level superstars they have right now. And I know I'm going to forget some people here, so you guys can remind me in the comments if I forget to list the name. But I'm going to just try to do this off the top of my head, okay? John Cena, Roman Reigns, CM Punk, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Sami Zayn. I do think Kevin Owens will be in the match too, so I'm going to put him in there. Jey Uso, LA Knight, Shinsuke Nakamura. Who else am I forgetting? Logan Paul. Jimmy Uso will be in there. Jacob Fatu, Solo Sikoa. Look at that. That's half the Rumble right there. Penta. There you go. I forgot about Penta. That's half the Rumble. And those are all people, everyone making sure I remember Penta. I know. I'm come on, how can I forget Penta? But that's half your field right there. And those are all people. Randy Orton, I think he could come back here, right? That is legitimately 15 or 16 people we just mentioned. They're all in the right scenario, are those top-level stars that you could all see getting a world championship opportunity. Maybe not at WrestleMania, but all people who have either been around the world title conversation or it's somehow, kind of in that same level, right? And that's what I mean when it comes to this match, and it's the way they built up the stories. And I know it was just brought up a minute ago, as Keith said, the dynamic between Owens and Zayn, right? But that is the running thread here, where it's not just Owens and Zayn. It's the whole thing when it comes to Owens and the history with Roman Reigns. Drew McIntyre, the same. Seth Rollins, right? We've talked about it. Look at everybody and how this could be like Roman Reigns versus the world in this Rumble match, including CM Punk. Because let's not forget, one of the main themes of this match could be CM Punk calling in the favor with Paul Heyman for what happened at Survivor Series. Now, let's talk about that for a second, because I think that's one of the most intriguing aspects here. What is the favor? What's the big favor? Everybody's been talking about it, all the ideas that we bantered about. I heard a great one the other day, and I'm sure you guys have mentioned it in some of the comments too, but it's the idea that what happens if, CM Punk and Roman Reigns just happen to switch Royal Rumble numbers, entry numbers into the Rumble. What happens if the wise man happens to maybe flip those numbers? And maybe it's Punk who gets a very lucky number at 28 or 29, maybe 30, right? Maybe Roman Reigns comes out early in the match, maybe the first 3 or 5 entrants. And then it's later revealed that somehow Paul Heyman, without Reigns' knowledge, maybe flipped the numbers to where Punk had the worst number, Reigns had the best number. You got to play this out in storyline, right? Everybody's got to pick a number. I think back to the 80s and 90s where they're drawing the numbers. It's like the balls out of the little lotto thing. And so I think, this could be a scenario where maybe that's something that comes into this, puts Punk in a position to win the Rumble, and somehow Reigns eventually realizes that the numbers were swapped, right? That's an idea. It's a good theory I like. But there's a lot of other ways you can go about this, because it is all about Punk getting the opportunity to main event WrestleMania for the first time. How many people have brought that up in the exchanges? We saw Sami Zayn do it this past Monday with Punk. Everybody keeps bringing up the idea that Punk has not gotten there yet. He's been Sami Zayn's been a main eventer. Jey Uso's been a main eventer, right, of a WrestleMania. Punk's not. And so it's still that idea that Punk can't get there. And if he doesn't win the Royal Rumble, is he going to get there? Well, I think he will. I think he is going to get the opportunity. And so here's what I think things become interesting. And Ryan brings up a good scenario here. So Ryan says he thinks that Punk and Roman will be the final two, and then Roman will be struggling to stay in the ring. Heyman pulls him out, declaring Punk the winner. So it's one of those kind of things, right? Possibly. That sets up Punk versus Roman in the future. Now, here's where this whole thing, to me, gets complicated but fun. It all, again, goes back to who are the two main events at WrestleMania. Who are the two marquee matches on the men's side at WrestleMania? It goes beyond that. It goes to three. Because, remember, the rumored matches that have been out there, if you're going to do Cody versus Cena, let's take this as scenario number one. Cody versus John Cena, Roman Reigns versus CM Punk. Let's say those are your two headline matches. Well, you've still got to find an opponent for Gunther, if he's still the world champion heading into WrestleMania 41, right? So, to get there, one of two things has to happen. Cena has to make his way into the championship, picture at WrestleMania 41, either by winning the Royal Rumble or winning the Elimination Chamber. You guys know my thoughts on this. I've said it multiple times. I think Cena winning the Elimination Chamber is the best option. I think now, Cena has not even been around this build to the Rumble. He was on the Raw on Netflix, but other than that, he has not played a prominent role at all in this build. And I think everyone believes this is just the predictable outcome, is that Cena's going to come in and win this thing. But he's not even been around, right? He's not even been mentioned in some of these promos outside of just a name drop. Like, the storyline threads are not there. But in a sense, that could be why he wins. Because you have all these people who hate each other, and they have just been going back and forth. You even have friends wondering if they can trust their other friends. And meanwhile, Cena's the one who benefits from this because he stayed out of all of it, right? I still think the best option is to have Cena win the Elimination Chamber because it puts more suspense. It gives you another month to play around with the idea that Cena can't get there. It's his last chance, right? And so I'm not going to pick John Cena to win this Rumble. I think it's too predictable, and I just think, as I said, the only way I think this works out, if the story maybe they tell, is that Cena does win. It's because he stayed out of all this drama that we've seen over the past little while between all these top stars. They all get frustrated at each other. They throw each other out. Cena eventually is able to benefit from it. That's the only way I think Cena wins this thing. But I still like the idea of him going through the Elimination Chamber. So we're throwing out John Cena. I think he'll be one of the final four. But I'm throwing out John Cena as the possible option. Okay? I think it's too obvious. Now, here's what I think it gets to from there. And we'll get to the surprise entrance in a minute. Don't worry. To me, we do know Roman Reigns is probably going to be in that final four, right? I mean, I would think that. If I'm picking a final four right now, this is probably what I'm going to go with. And we can kind of individually go through the rest of the options here. John Cena, Roman Reigns, CM Punk, and Seth Rollins will be the final four that I think offers the most intriguing outcome because of the different relationship dynamics between those four men. And so, if that is your scenario that we're left with, Roman, I've said it. I don't think Roman's winning this Rumble. I kind of tried to tell you, hey, maybe Roman could be a problem for Cena. We all know. I don't think they're doing Roman versus Cody Part 3. Now, that's not to say that they could not somehow, still have Roman win and all of a sudden somehow Punk wins the world title from Gunther at the Elimination Chamber. Then you still get Punk versus Reigns. I don't think that's the best way to go. I don't think it's the best possible outcome, in my opinion. So, and look, I think this is a good prediction too, and I'll say this. I think you could certainly, if you get Cena thrown out before that Final Four, then I think this is probably, you just insert McIntyre in there, and I think it's that simple. Because then, if you have Reigns and Punk who are having to team up against Rollins and McIntyre, and you think about the dynamics there that they've been pushing, I think this is actually a great idea. So, I actually support this one more so than the one I'm picking, because I think this gives you a lot more interesting stuff. And as T-Rob says, don't ever forget that The Rock, if he decides to enter this thing, throw everything we just said out the window because The Rock's going to win the whole thing. But anyways, so now I think, and here you go, here's another interesting point from Keith. Imagine Reigns winning and Punk asking Heyman to put him in the match for the triple threat for the championship. Another possible option. So if we go next, because I don't think Reigns is winning. I just, plain and simple, I don't think he's winning because I think it's too complicated. It's very easy to get there without Reigns winning. So then it comes down to Punk or Rollins for me. And I know I've seen a lot of people say, hey, look, this is Punk's year. I picked Punk to win the Rumble last year. I thought it was the best option over Cody, but they went with Cody, and it turns out it was the right choice. The thing is, Punk winning this year, then how do we get to Punk's WrestleMania match? Do we think it is simple as doing Punk versus Cody? Maybe that's the pivot they've made to where it's not going to be Cody versus Cena. It's going to be Punk versus Cody. Right? Or do we think it's Punk versus Gunther? I think if you're going to have the option, it would have to be Punk versus Cody, in my opinion. That's the most intriguing possibility here. And so, from that perspective, I think Punk makes a lot of sense. But I think here's what's also interesting to me. This is where we have so many different WrestleMania 41 combinations where it does get a little hard to know. If, let's say, they are going to stick with the same idea of, let's say it is Cody versus Cena, Cena gets there via the Elimination Chamber. There's your WWE Undisputed Championship match, Cody versus Cena. He's earned his opportunity. If they want to do Reigns versus Punk doesn't necessarily need the championship to main event. So Punk still gets what he wants out of this, main eventing WrestleMania. Reigns wanted the World Championship back, or the WWE Championship back. He's not there yet, but somehow through this favor, Reigns has got to face Punk, and that's where the Heyman intrigue comes in. Heyman becomes the story. So now you're left with what happens with the World Heavyweight Championship. So if you're going to do those two matches, you've got to have an opponent for Gunther. And I've told you guys, my fear, this is my fear. If you're wondering, what do I think is like I'm not going to say worst case scenario, but what am I worried about? My worry is that if you're going to get a shocking result in one of these Rumbles, I think it's the men's, and I think it's Logan Paul. And he's not my pick to win it by any means. But if you're telling me the way they set that up on Monday on Raw, with the idea that they're almost trying to sort of either lead you in the direction of a triple threat, or it's something where Logan Paul is going to be in that championship match at WrestleMania 41, which I would not be surprised by at all now. That's my fear, is that Logan Paul may win this thing. I don't think it's going to happen. But if it's not Logan Paul to challenge Gunther, or if he does somehow earn his opportunity to get into that match, I'm telling you, I think Seth Rollins is such an interesting choice here to win this Rumble, because Seth has been at the center of a lot of these different stories that have kind of tied together here. And again, right, whether it's with Owens, whether it's McIntyre, these are two guys who have kind of been in that position that Rollins has almost wanted to try to get to, right? He's tried. He's not all the way going to the dark side yet. But because he can understand why Owens is frustrated with the whole Roman Reigns thing. He can understand why even Drew McIntyre is frustrated. Now, I know they just beat the hell out of each other, right? But he's also been kicked by Sami Zayn, right? And so he's questioning a little bit, okay, can I really trust Sami? Which I think that's where, like, the eliminations when it comes to Sami, Owens, McIntyre, Rollins in this match, all those, and even Jay and Jimmy, how they play a factor in this. It's going to tell the story here. To me, I think Seth Rollins is the most interesting person in this match because of all the different ways they could go here. And that's why I almost think I'm going to go out on a limb and pick Rollins to win this thing. I'm not saying I think it's the best choice, but I think it's the most interesting choice to get you to where you want to go if those are the matches. If it's Cody Cena, Reigns versus Punk, which does not need the championship right now, I think that Rollins, all of a sudden, if he wants a shot at Gunther again, this would earn him that opportunity. But really, to me, it wouldn't be necessarily just the story of Rollins winning. It would be all the different things that have to happen along the way. And that's where, how does Rollins interact with Reigns? Does it come down to Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns? What if that happened, right? If it comes down to Seth Rollins and CM Punk, I mean, think about those potential final two scenarios and what could happen there and what it would mean for Seth Rollins versus what it would mean for, whoever else, right? Punk. Rollins has said nothing would please him more than eliminating CM Punk. But there is something that probably would please him more, and that would be eliminating Roman Reigns to make sure Reigns is denied that opportunity to get another shot at that championship right now. So, look, I'm going to pull this up too. I'm not saying that I think that Rollins would be my first choice, but I am trying to kind of come up with what are they going to do to make this interesting? And could they throw us off by picking like kind of a wild card choice here? If they are, I think Rollins is the best of that bunch. But I do still, I mean, look, the T-Rob here it is. I have no idea who's going to win this match. I've never been less confident on the Men's Royal Rumble match. I couldn't tell you in how long. Because I think that there, again, are so many ways they could go here. And I know you meant Royal Rumble. Yeah, but it just, sometimes I feel like there are options that are so obvious that WWE goes the other way. But last year, it kind of felt like Cody was so obvious. And they still did it, right? And Punk was probably that second choice. We knew it was going to come down to Cody and Punk last year. But I'm very curious to see what happens here. I've gone out on a limb on both of these, but I'm going to pick Seth Rollins, and I'm not confident about it, but I do think it's one where, to me, the three best options are Punk, Cena, and Rollins, in my opinion. I don't think Reigns is one of the best options because I just don't think he needs it, right? We've talked about that. And so if I take out the obvious choice of Cena and have him go through the Elimination Chamber, and then if I take out Punk, because I think Punk's going to face Roman without a championship on the line, then it doesn't really make sense for him to earn a championship opportunity, right? So I'm gonna go wild here and pick Seth Rollins as the winner of the Royal Rumble. But the thing is, I have no idea how they get there, and I don't even know if it's feasible because you could also do it the opposite way, right, guys? You could have Rollins get eliminated. You could have Punk and Reigns team up to eliminate Seth Rollins. Now, what do you think that would do to send Seth Rollins over the edge at that point, right? Then you may have that final chapter for Rollins to become the next the next Kevin Owens. So yeah, I think that's interesting. Now look, this is a great point here, by the way. Now Jacob Fatu, it's hard to keep Jacob Fatu out of that final four. I'm gonna be honest with you, and that's where things get interesting. Because you guys know my love for Jacob Fatu. It's gonna be hard to keep him out of that final group if you're WWE. And I know it was brought up earlier. I think maybe Eduardo brought it up, but I think him being the Iron Man of the match, or even not even an Iron Man, he may just be, he's my pick for the person who's going to eliminate the most people, because I think the way they built up Jacob Fatu has been just incredible. And you guys know I've talked about that many times. But I think it's, he's going to be a monster in this thing. And who throws him out? There's a good prediction for you. You guys let me know in the comments. Who is going to throw Jacob Fatu out of this match? Because again, if we're talking about options for WrestleMania, let's say, remember, we're just going with the theory that it could be Cody, Cena, Reigns, and Punk, right? Then it's like, well, could we switch that and say, do they do Roman versus Jacob Fatu? Is it time to do Roman Reigns, Jacob Fatu? Or do they do Jacob Fatu, Solo Sikoa? Now, there's the prediction I was looking for. Because I think if you're trying to come up with the best option for who throws Fatu out, what happens if somehow Solo Sikoa either intentionally or accidentally is involved in throwing out Jacob Fatu? That's that final moment for Jacob Fatu. Remember all the things we brought up about Solo holding him back. How many times has Solo held Jacob Fatu back to not allow him to go destroy someone? And then we talk about the Bloodline trademark hug and all that. I mean, wouldn't it be kind of interesting if Solo somehow is involved in Jacob Fatu losing this match? Or is it the other way around, where Fatu just comes out and absolutely just destroys Solo, and that's the point where it's all over, right? And he calls Solo the opportunity. And so, as Robert says here too, maybe Roman throws him out, and then maybe that leads to a WrestleMania match. Maybe that's another idea. You do Roman versus Jacob Fatu, because they've certainly built up Jacob Fatu well enough right now for me to believe Roman Reigns versus Jacob Fatu is a WrestleMania-worthy match. So, and I mean, look, T-Rob, you asked, because Solo said he's going to be in the Rumble. He hasn't, but I'm just assuming he's going to, right? Because I think it's a missed opportunity if you don't have Solo in there. Because remember, Solo's lost everything at this point. This is a way to try to get it back. Not the Ulafala, but trying to get back, the championship. So I think Solo's got to be in the Rumble, even though I think they haven't officially announced it. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm telling you. Now, if we go to some of the surprise entrants, and I've tried to pull up some of these from you guys earlier as well. Man, I'm telling you, I could talk about this men's match for an hour. I think it's so fascinating. Hey, shout out to Mr. July 1776. Glad to catch you live. Yeah, we don't do many of these lives these days. It's been a while, but I want to get back into that rhythm. I love doing the live streams. I like doing the videos, but listen, I love the live streams because I get to talk to you guys in real time. So, all right, the potential surprises for the Rumble. Now, let me throw out this idea to you, okay? I'm going to throw out another idea for you. Now, remember, we talked about all these ideas for Cody Rhodes. And, what happens if Randy Orton does return and somehow he's the wild pick for Triple H, where maybe they do want to do Cody versus Orton, right? And maybe Orton wins the Rumble, somehow faces Cody this year at WrestleMania. I don't think that's going to happen because I think you're rushing it. Orton's been out for a while now. And I just think it's way too quick to kind of rush back into that story to get there now. But who knows? Don't discount that idea either. If Orton somehow makes his way into that Final Four, if he's back. And so, yeah, I think Orton could be one of the surprise returns. I know people are rooting for it. Mandy says it here. Can we get our guy Big E back? Can Big E get back in the fold here? I'd love to see it. What could you imagine the visual? All right, let's set this up. Let's set the stage here. The visual, where let's say you're at one of those points in the Rumble where maybe it's early on, where Kofi and Xavier Woods, I assume they're going to be in it. We don't really know officially, but and someone said earlier too, you could put 40 people in the match this year. I hope they don't, but it's big enough to feel that way. But I think it's kind of one of these scenarios where, could you imagine the look on Kofi and Xavier Woods' face if they're standing over someone, let's say they've beaten down whoever, Penta or somebody like that, and all of a sudden Big E, he comes out and makes the shocking return. That'd be incredible. Yeah, I think that would be fantastic. And one of the other surprise entrances, you guys have already said it, Joe Henry's got to be in there. I think it's an obvious choice now, even before, right? Even without the official TNA partnership with WWE, you would have expected people like this, but now that the partnership is official, it's got to be. He's got to be. We got to believe in Joe Henry. I believe he will be in this match. So I could see him coming out early too. I think he'd be an interesting choice early. What if you start off with Cena and Joe Henry? I think that'd be tremendous. AJ Styles, another guy out there who I think probably makes a return in this match. And think about how that adds to the star-studded field if he does make his return here. Because we know AJ, man, what a brutal thing that was, right? Makes his comeback, gets hurt on the first night, and then you never know, like we mentioned, like the LA Knight U.S. title run and all that, you don't know how that threw off the plans for everything. So, yeah, I'd love to see AJ back here, and I think there probably is a good chance he does come back. And again, you never know with like the other TNA possibilities too, right? I mean, the Hardys are out there. I mean, they're potential options if you want to throw them into this match. Don't know if it happens, but like that is something to think about, right? So Wyatt Six, I know people mentioned that. If you guys haven't seen it, I think there was a story that came out today actually on the Wyatt Six. They got transferred to SmackDown, and one of the reasons why they've not been on WWE TV recently, I think, is because there's an injury to one of the members of the group. Now, I didn't see anyone mention the exact name of who that was, but yeah, I think, you never know. That'd be quite an entrance if you had an Uncle Howdy come out during the Rumble. That'd be a fantastic entrance, I think. So, yeah, I think it's gonna be kind of fun. So, we'll see what happens. But all right, let's see what else we got here. Calvin says, yeah, WWE setting everything up for Cody versus CM Punk, and then maybe Gunther versus Rollins. Yeah, I mean, I think, it's one of those things where, like I said, if I could see Logan Paul being added to this stuff, I'm not going to lie, guys. Like, I think the way they brought him in, look at the way they kind of hyped up his return and everything, right? So I could definitely see, them wanting to do that with maybe adding Logan Paul to that match. I'd much rather see Rollins versus Gunther as the one-on-one, but, I think we're gonna find out. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. But I don't know. There's something about the idea of me for Rollins winning. If it's not one of the obvious choices, right? Unless they're just like, hey, let's go ahead and get the Cena thing in motion. We want everyone to know 2 months ahead of time that we're gonna do Cena versus versus Cody. that you're not gonna, that makes sense from a business perspective. But I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. So, all right, so there you go. Those are my official predictions. I'll run through them again quickly. I'm gonna go DIY to retain the championships. Cody to beat Kevin Owens. Do I still have time to change my pick from Bianca to Charlotte? I think Charlotte is so obvious. I may actually make my official change to Charlotte here. Okay, T-Rob has convinced me. I picked Bianca earlier, but that's why we're doing a live stream. I have a chance to change my pick. But I'm going to go with a not-so-obvious choice in the men's match, and that's Seth Rollins. I think Rollins, I don't know why. There's something for me right now that's pushing me towards Seth Rollins, and I can't fully explain it except for trying to fill out the WrestleMania card and feeling like Reigns and Punk is not going to be for the title. Cena can get there through the Elimination Chamber, so I'm going to go Seth Rollins for my pick for the Rumble men's match. So, all right, let's get to what you guys think. Here we go. Hey, Nick's flat out saying it. Hey, forget the CM Punk stuff. Cena winning the Rumble match. It could be that simple, Nick. Honestly, it really could. But I think we're gonna see what happens. Javion's gonna go with the Sami Zayn heel turn here. Like I said, to me, it's not just the loaded Rumble, being the thing, but it's like I think the most interesting, compelling part of this match is just what do they do with Sami, McIntyre, Owens, Rollins, all these people that we've had just these storylines with, right? And how does Roman Reigns play a role in that? Because it's like, what if you get a scenario where Owens and Rollins and McIntyre are the ones who all team up to eliminate Roman Reigns? I mean, you could see it, right? Because they all have kind of been put in that position to be those kind of guys. So, hey, prediction here, Sami working with KO. You never know, right? I do think we're getting the match between those two at WrestleMania 41 because otherwise I don't know where they head unless they team up. But, yeah, I think, we'll see. Hey, if Jacob Fatu wins, strap a rocket to that man. Give him the Royal Rumble win. Just give him everything. Give him the Ulafala. Like, come on, I'm all in on Jacob Fatu. You guys know this. T-Rob. Cena and Rock 3 at WrestleMania. Can you imagine that? I mean, my goodness. I'm not sure those guys could maybe pull off a trilogy when it comes to that third match in 2025. But, hey, you never say never when it comes to two of the top stars in the history of the company. But Royalty Prince, going to go with Seth as well. Hey, we'll see. We'll see if we get there on this one. But, I always try to be more creative with the Rumble picks because I'm like, I guess I could just pick, this person or that person that seems obvious. But I like the idea of maybe WWE's thinking, different levels here of ideas they can work with. So, I think that Kevin Owens will be in the match. It really, right? It's the structure of the card. My guess is you're going to do the women's match to start the show, and then maybe you do DIY Motor City Machine Guns. Then you do Cody versus Owens. Then you do the men's match to finish the show. Because you definitely want to spread out the Rumble matches, and they do that every year, right? I hope they don't start with the men's match, because I think that's easily the biggest selling point of this whole thing. I don't think that'll happen, but that's my guess on the order. You have Owens lose, and then all of a sudden he comes back, 30 minutes later, and he's in the Rumble. So we'll see what happens. Great question here, and I'll answer this one. Favorite Royal Rumble match? 2007, 2008, 2016, your favorites. Well, again, for me, I did kind of grow up in an era where, you had a lot of kind of fun, interesting Rumbles. Of course, the Attitude Era, even the, going back and watching the others. My favorites, 1992, just for the commentary of Bobby Heenan alone. If you guys have never watched that, you have to watch it. Like, it's the one where Ric Flair wins it. The title was on the line. The WWF Championship was up for grabs. It had been vacated. Ric Flair wins the championship by winning the Rumble from number 3. Bobby Heenan's commentary, the best performance for any commentator in the history of the sport, in my opinion. 2001, also probably a favorite of mine. Austin wins that one. But I thought the star power in the 2001 Rumble was just incredible. So those are probably my top 2 for sure. I think there's a lot of good ones elsewhere. I think 1994 is an underrated one. Now, that's the year, remember, that was Bret Hart and Lex Luger, who were the co-winners. So that's another one I'd suggest you watch. Not just, again, the co-winners thing isn't for everyone. I get it. But the match itself was really good in terms of the way they kind of played out all the storylines there too. So those are some of my favorites. You guys know I like the old school stuff. So I'd probably put those 3 up there when it comes to that, 92, 94, 2001. And some of the more recent ones, I'm going to be honest with you, like I just forget some of those. What was it, 2008? Was that the Taker one? I like that one a lot. I can tell you what my least favorite Rumble is. Do you want me to give you my prediction for that one? Or my pick for that one? It might be 2022. because I thought that was just an atrocious Royal Rumble. And so, yeah, I think that was one that I just absolutely could not stand. But 95 too was pretty bad. But anyways, so I mean, look, the 2020 year too, that's probably not or was 2021 maybe? I don't remember. But 2022 I thought was pretty rough. All right, yeah, Bobby Heenan was the best. There's no question about that. All right, so Calvin's going to go official picks here. Men's match Rollins, women's match Charlotte. I think that's what I officially went with, even though I made Bianca my choice earlier. Maybe I'll hedge my bets here and say, give me one of those two. But I'm sold on picking Rollins for the men's match in my eyes here. So yeah, 2008, that was the one I was trying to think of. That was a great Rumble too. I'd put that in my top 5 for sure. But yeah, Ray too. What was the year Ray won? Was that 2000? You guys can remind me. The years run together sometimes on this. But Aaron, by the way, mentioned earlier he thinks Jacob Fatu is getting eliminated by Braun Strowman. That's not a bad idea. They've had that going on as well. If they want to continue that, they can maybe do that based on Jacob Fatu just beating his ass at Saturday Night's Main Event. I mean, what else do we say here? But yeah, I think. Look, do you think KO is going to beat Cody? Wilder things have happened, I suppose, but I don't see it. I think for the story, Cody winning again just makes a lot of sense because it can send Owens even further down in the spiral. And he didn't snap on Zayn this past time, right? But this could be the thing where Owens just eventually snaps on Sami because maybe Sami does something. Maybe Sami's the one who helps Roman in this Rumble. Either eliminate Owens or eliminate like Rollins or McIntyre or whatever. And so, yeah, I think there's plenty of ways you can go with that. Yeah, 2006, you guys, sorry, I don't know why I was thinking 2005, but no, it was 2006. You're right, on Ray. So, T-Rob official picks, Charlotte and Punk on that one. Dolph Ziggler returning. Yeah, remember with the TNA partnership, they could go Dolph Ziggler maybe coming in, having a nice Rumble appearance. I'd like that. Dolph was always one of my favorites of that area. I loved it when he eventually got the cash in. One of my favorite cash-ins of all time on Alberto Del Rio there. That was tremendous. So, yeah. And here's the question, too, I've been thinking about a lot. What did Drew McIntyre and Jey Uso do at WrestleMania? If, again, these are kind of the combinations we've mentioned, if these are your matches, what do those guys do? And I know some people have talked about the idea. There were some people even pitched it, hey, maybe McIntyre and Rollins team up to take on the Usos. That'd be interesting, right? Well, that would throw my theory of Rollins winning the Rumble out because that wouldn't factor into that. But I don't know. I think, yeah, like there's plenty of ways you can go about what Drew, you've got to give Drew a big match because he has continued just to be one of the best people, I think, in the company right now. The work he's doing, the best work of his career. Jay, I do think there's like certainly value in having Jay and Jimmy team back up for another big match at WrestleMania, but I also think you want to keep pushing that idea that Jay can just do this by himself, right? And so I don't know. I really don't know where they go with those two right now. I think we'll learn more after this match on Saturday, but yeah, I'm not sure. So who loses their belt first? Now, this is a great question, James, because I think, we can already kind of look ahead to the WrestleMania side of things and be like, okay, let's say you do get those matches. Let's say you get Cody Cena. Let's say you get Rollins maybe challenging for the world title against Gunther. Who loses, right? I mean, does Cena win it in WrestleMania? Does he beat Cody? I don't know. I mean, I don't think so, but you never know. I'm going to maybe stick with my same pick, guys. I think the person who eventually takes the title off of Cody is Randy Orton. And whenever that time comes, I think that's when it is. But I think Gunther is going to lose that championship sooner rather than later. Because remember, they've been playing up to confidence issues with Gunther too. And so I think Gunther losing is the choice here. It's just a matter of when they decide to do it. So, yeah, actually, here's a great point here. Yes, like you could do something. I didn't even think about that, but like you could tie Jay and Jimmy into the Solo and Jacob Fatu situation if they decide not to do the singles match between Jacob and Solo. So that's another idea. You could sort of go with that. So yeah, we'll find out. Okay, here's just an interesting one. The future, but I think we get Cena and Randy Orton for that crown jewel. Okay, that's not a bad choice there. I could definitely see that. Doing Cena Orton there. We know they're going to do that match again at some point, right? So you could see them kind of maybe put that on that show. That could certainly happen. And remember, yeah, Tama Tonga, I mean, you could have him in the mix with, I guess that's a question too, right? Tonga Loa, the injury. When is he due back? Because you could do the Usos versus the Tongans at WrestleMania if you wanted to. That's an interesting thought. Or maybe Fatu turns on Solo. You do Solo and the Usos against, I don't know. Maybe you could do that. So a lot of ways you could go. Again, injuries have kind of played a factor here. We don't know when people are, getting ready to come back. And all that. We're talking about Orton. We don't even know if Orton's coming back for sure on Saturday, right? So you never know with some of these, but yeah, we'll find out. All right, guys. We're going to wrap up here shortly. Again, I appreciate you guys hopping in. We did this just on the fly. I was thinking, hey, I got to do a predictions video today, but then I said, you know what? Forget it. Let's just do it live. Let's talk to you guys, get your thoughts, because as you heard, I think talking through all these scenarios is a lot more fun than just, hey, telling you, act like I know what's going to happen. I don't have a clue what's going to happen on Saturday in this Rumble. That's why I keep saying it's one of the best they've ever done in terms of the build, and I think this is going to be just tremendous stuff. And and two, I thought this was kind of odd. I want to bring this up quickly. They were kind of teasing that January 27th date for Reigns, but there was no mention of it, right? Now, they revealed the WWE 2K25 stuff with Heyman, with Reigns on the cover, but I don't know. That was kind of odd, like not to have Reigns even here for kind of the build to this match. Kind of the same thing with Cena. So, yeah, I'm curious to know what's going on with that. Matt Cardona, I know T-Rob, you brought him up a couple times. He could be one, right? I mean, Chelsea's there. I assume that's always one. I feel like we've been predicting that one for a couple of years now, but maybe this is the year they could do it, for sure. So, all right, guys. The 2K thing, that was even pre-recorded footage. So, like, I don't even know why. I don't know. They had been setting up that January 27th date for Reigns, but I'm curious to know what happened there on that. But all right, guys, listen, I appreciate you hopping in. There are a lot more people here than I thought it would be for kind of an impromptu stream, but you guys are excited for the Royal Rumble. So am I. And again, if you're joining in, just, you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe, turn the notifications on. We do a lot of videos here. I haven't done as many lately, like I said. The dad toddler life has kind of gotten me a little bit. T-Rob knows I'm busy as well, doing other things. But yeah, I mean, it's Royal Rumble season, WrestleMania 41 season. A lot more videos coming, a lot more live streams. I think we're going to start doing just as many live streams as we can, reacting to everything, giving you thoughts on all this stuff. I like interacting with you guys. Don't always get a chance to do it in the comments, but I appreciate your support of the channel. My plan right now, depending on when this thing ends on Saturday, I don't know how long this show is going to be. My plan is that we will do a live reaction to the Royal Rumble on Saturday. Now, that's the plan. It could always change. We may, say, well, you know what? It's not going to happen Saturday night. We may do it Sunday morning. But we will figure out a time this weekend to do a live reaction to the Rumble rather than just my video reaction. So I want to let you guys know that. And so, yeah, I appreciate you. Appreciate you all joining in. We'll start doing more of these live things. So hope you guys enjoy it. Send me your predictions. If you didn't make your official predictions in the chat during the live stream, send them in the comments. Who are you picking for the matches in the Royal Rumble this weekend in Indianapolis? Let me know your thoughts on that. Again, appreciate you guys watching. I'll talk to you soon at Wrestling Reaction.